Hello, Stephanie. Thank you for being here for my project View 360, where I interview different people and based on their different backgrounds on the topic of sustainability. To start off with, could you please introduce yourself a little bit about your background and yourself?
Sure. My name's Stephanie. I'm Singaporean, although my parents are from England, but they came to Singapore in the late 40s, and my dad in about 1956. They met in Singapore, mum and dad, and my sister and I were born here. I've been in Singapore probably over 40 years living here, although I'm older than that. Joined the Polo Club with my parents did in 1976. So I've been at the Polo Club and seen it change a lot from then till now. And I've been actively riding horses pretty much 25, 30 years.
That's very interesting, and it's good to know about your background. So my first question is how you implement sustainability in your personal life, and it doesn't have to be big things because small things make a big difference.
Okay. I think I asked myself this question before I met you. I was thinking myself, what do I actually do? Because I think it's important in the way the world is changing. And there are, as you say, a lot of small things. And I was thinking, I don't know if I do enough. And then I actually went through and thought about it. And I think I do quite a lot. Definitely use fans over air cons, keep the air con setting at a certain temperature, 25 degrees. Unplug devices at night, don't leave water heaters on. I actually have solar panels for our water heating, but it is a house rental, but that's one of the factors I liked. Rainwater collection for outdoor use, for plants and washing the car and things like that. And having lived in my own home for 15 years, the electricity bill is actually halved from what I paid in the other house to what I'm paying now. So I can actually see financially how those changes have impacted us. And I think educating the kids that live at home too, to not always turn the aircon on. If it's a cloudy day, you don't need it, use the fan. I'm very aware of recycling. I try not to use single plastic, these bubble teas and things like that. I try and bring my own coffee cup or my water bottle wherever I go. Recycling, make sure I do it properly at home, although I don't think they really enforce it too much in Singapore, but I try to make those positive steps. Lights, I think using LED bulbs, I think is important too. Just as you said, a lot of small things. And I was thinking, don't do much, but when I added it out and listed it out, I said, actually, I don't do such a bad job myself. I've actually just bought myself an electric car as well. So yay to BYD. So that's personally what I've been doing.
That's a lot. That's actually really impressive, and it's good to see that how much you're doing that can help the environment. And so do you see potentially, because I know you're in the Polo Club quite often, do you see like the changes that you try to implement in your own personal life? Do you see other people in the Polo Club doing that, or the Polo Club itself that does these actions as well?
So I think my awareness began with my own personal concern and how daily choices impact the environment. But I think it made me question the long-term footprint of our activities when I got involved in when I've been at the club, thinking about the water we use for our field, the bedding, the feed, and all these aspects. What can the club do? But I think, as you mentioned, the club is got a long history and heritage and luxury, and I think it might be harder to filter down to the membership so soon, but I think being involved on the committee since the first time in 2014, and then I came back around 2018, and I've been on the committee ever since. I think we've been trying to do that, and the latest initiative is, although we looked at it a few times, is we've actually started the solar panels on top of our indoor arena. I think in the early days when we looked at it, it might have not been so affordable. And I think from our consumption, we are probably saving in the region of 90,000 a year. And we've actually, a lot of these companies, we ended up with one company, I think it's called GSS, they actually gave us a 13-year deal where they install the solar panels, they give us a percentage of rebate. But I think with all the other things that we're trying to do to save using electricity, water, and things like that. Overall, I think the club will save quite a significant amount of money. And I think it's good people start to see that we're taking these initiatives to do that. So that's one solid thing that we're actually implementing. I think our current contract is up sometime this year, and I don't think they're finished yet, but come August we should be enjoying that, and I think helping being a bit more green. Small things, do you want to know about some of the small things we do that I think we implemented? I think we've always we've tried to use LED lights. We have also auto on and off for our lights, so they're not on all the time, they will shut on and off or turn on and off. So you're saving electricity. LED lights, as I mentioned. We also I think we have valves or water stoppers on our water pressure, so you can't overuse water, and I think that also helps a lot. Recycle bins around the club. We also collect our horse waste. In the past, recently we always had sawdust shipped in from Malaysia. Now they've actually closed down, I think probably because of the racing is closed. So they would actually collect our sawdust for free, but in the sawdust was the dung, so that we'd actually have free disposal. So now we actually have it disposed, sent off to, I think it's Sunoco or somewhere in Jurong, and they will incinerate it, and then I'm not quite, but they will recycle it in whatever way they can. I'm not 100% sure on that. We'll have to talk to the office. Yeah.
In the process of the incineration, when you bring the horse dung and the other stuff to the Jurong East, is that necessarily sustainable as well? Because do they burn it?
I'm not quite sure what the process is, so I'll have to actually check, but I know it is incinerated. We had actually looked at the club in the past to look at doing our own dung, making it into a compost so it can be used. And what actually happened was, I looked into this. We need to have a generator out where the dung is collected and where it's stored. And unfortunately, because our club's so big, getting the wiring and all of that was going to cost about $500,000 to set up what we wanted to do, to then use the dung, turn it into compost, and it never happened. So we would welcome some initiatives and ideas. I'd have to find out more about how, if it's just incineration, is it causing more harm than good through that incineration process? That one I don't know. I think some of the other things that we have looked at, and again, we don't know what the solution is. We have such a big field. So we looked at collecting rainwater. But unfortunately, because we have such a big field, we would need such huge underground containers, and we don't have the space to do that. I don't know if there's other options. Because look how most places just have a small piece and collecting the water. Of course, the water collects when it's raining a lot, then we don't need the water necessarily, and then I don't know what the shelf life is of the water. Again, Mr. Han, which I might get him to come and meet you, he would know more because he helps us driving all of that. What else do we have? I think I've done the auto valve shut off for water. If you want to see anything else, light switches, water tanks, solar panels, and recycle bins. But I really do think that if we want to do something, if we have space constraints, cost constraints, and all of this, the club really needs to engage the government authorities like NEA or NParks to help us. But I am not quite sure how much help we've been getting on that. Yeah.
And earlier you were talking about, what I found quite interesting is you were talking about how the initial startup costs for such projects tend to be really expensive. But then as you actually implement it further in the long run, it would actually save a lot for the
club. Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that's oftentimes one of the main reasons why the government potentially or other facilities don't tend to initially start with sustainability projects. It's because of the barrier, because of this initial startup costs. But I think it's important to look beyond that and see the long run benefits of it.
I think you're right, and I think that's where probably 5 years ago we did explore solar panels, and I think back then a lot of the setup cost was really high. And I think what's happened, it's become more popular, and the government is giving rebates for people who do it. And I think that's why this time around a lot of companies are absorbing that setup, and then you sign in for like 13 years. But the other factor is in 2038, our land lease is up. So if we're going to put $500,000 into something and we only have 13 years left, it's something that we need to think about our returns versus the cost up front. So, but if it's something that the government can support, I actually don't know the avenues, what we can do, but we do discuss it in committee. And I think the club is certainly over the last 10 years has become a lot more aware. We even have the small herb garden, but that's just an extra small thing we can do to help with Coriander Leaf, the caterers. But yeah, I think that's some of the initiatives we're doing, but we would love to welcome some other ideas if there's anything you could help us with.
Yeah, I was speaking to, I think, Rickard a while back, or just now actually, and he was talking about the dung.
Correct.
And how they were planning to sort of use that as fertilizer.
Correct.
But then again, there's lots of things you have to consider, is the fact that the fertilizer might breach the water systems, and that could lead to a lot of
problems. And
that's
the government is worried about that. And Rickard's in water as well, and then water piping, and so he knows a lot of the challenges. So yeah, we'd have to be careful, because if it's from horse manure and it goes into the soil as compost and then it goes into the water system.
So in terms of challenges, there's obviously those type of challenges, but there's also, especially with like the Polo Club, oftentimes do you find it that there's challenges in sort of implementing sustainability practices and also balancing the luxury and the tradition of the place?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest challenge is balancing the tradition, luxury, and environmental responsibility with the rich heritage of polo. I don't think they always receive alternatives particularly well, like if we have events and functions, single use of cups and things like that, because it'll always usually be plastic cups and things like that around big events. I think also the other thing is the practical cost of using sustainable products is high. So then it would mean that the entrance fee or the charge for a ticket might be higher than what it would be. I mean, when you're buying organic or something more sustainable, eco-friendly, it costs more. So I think it's a whole mentality switch, but I think the polo community would be more welcoming, and their guests at events, if they see the initiatives the club's doing. So I think the solar panels is a huge one, and maybe we could raise more awareness on our social media about these are the initiatives the club does. Can you help us? Use the recycle bins, don't put manure in the wrong bin and cups in the other bin. Just to educate people, and the staff need to be educated, because sometimes the staff we have are probably from a lower background of income, and they may not really worry too much about the styrofoam boxes of takeaway that they get. I think the club used to actually deliver food to them. I don't know if they do that anymore, and it would come in 200 packets of food. So I think we've got to be aware ourselves.
You were also talking a little bit just now, which I found quite interesting, about mentality. So I think that it's oftentimes, obviously it's more expensive when you try to implement sustainability, like the fees and things like that. But if the Polo Club were to sort of showcase what all they do, I think that could change the mentality in a way.
And people would be willing to contribute in small ways. I think also in terms of polo, having been here so long myself, the population of players, the dynamics is changing. It was quite an older, I think, average of 40 and above. And now you're seeing a younger group coming in. And I think they are more aware than maybe the 70-year-olds that are playing polo, the 60 and 70-year-olds. That generation weren't so worried about the future. It's the younger generation that are worrying about the future for their kids and their grandkids. And I think possibly the mental change for the elderly, an example is my mum, who prints everything. Prints absolutely everything. And we moved house and we had, I don't know how many cartons of printed paper. And she can't change. Whereas I minimize, I don't rarely print anything myself now, right? Or reuse paper. But it's a mentality shift and education. And I think it's great that you're doing this initiative and studying ways and seeing what people know. I might know, but if you look at my parents' generation, and I don't think
Yeah.
they will be aware of any of this
Mm.
or implementing any of it.
So that brings me on to my next question in terms of when you were talking about how there are more young people in the Polo Club and how it's transitioned from a different sort of population here. What advice would you give to young people who want to bring sustainability into their life, or especially into traditionally unexpected places like the Polo Club?
So I think that my advice would be your ideas might actually seem too progressive at first
Mm.
to that particular audience, but to be patient and to start small. And obviously change can start with baby steps and a simple conversation, and it's about progress, small progress, no matter how small, is still progress.
Yeah.
Maybe you could share data and success stories to get a buy-in and to see, wow, that was great. And learn about the club or the polo culture to find ways to merge sustainability with it. But I think it's all about education, and I think it's all about baby steps.
Yeah.
And I think this is such a niche sport that it is something that I think people do have the wealth in this club, but I think we have to, they want to be seen at a luxury event, but I think we can help maybe when we run our events, like donation or bring your cup for your champagne, or I don't know, recycle, reuse. But it has to be something that I think the club has to buy into first.
Yeah.
But if there were success stories, like we can share our success stories, but maybe there's success stories as a young person, you should share. Hey, did you know the Polo Club has, if you're talking to other clients, about this, you can actually share everyone's experiences that you picked up. If you get it out there and start sharing it, and I think social media or TikTok or whatever it might be is a way to get the information across. But your TikTok would only get the younger audience, not the older audience.
And I think you're a perfect example of small things go a long way, because you've done so much that actually has a huge impact.
Yeah. And I don't think I realized I did so much. And then I was thinking about it and looking around the house and saying, but that's great if it's become so natural that you don't realize you're doing it, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
And I think that I would say that people of my age probably do it with kids that are in 18, 20-year-old, that they're aware. I'm sure you'll be told too, Dad, hey, why are we turning aircons on, or why are we doing this, or what? I'm usually the one who gets the electricity bill, so I will say no aircons. But it's important, I think. Yeah. So
is there anything else you would like to add?
I think if you want to have a bit more facts, like you were asking about the burning of the manure, we can always set up a meeting with our facilities manager that knows how things worked or didn't work. He might say more or less what I said, but he'll be able to answer that, or I can find out for you. And I can get back to you with that. Might be easier as well.
That's very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time.